Glad to see that you have made it to section 2. Continuing from where we left off in the last section, we are going to discuss the various learning styles and how they differ from person to person. So, Professor, what do you mean by learning styles?
To answer your question, I would like to point out the theory of multiple intelligences by Howard Gardner, and how two scholars, Rita Dunn and Kenneth Dunn, came up with unique learning styles which can be used by different types of people. Simply put, the term learning styles means that every person learns differently. Technically, an individual's learning style refers to the preferential way in which they absorb, process, comprehend and retain information. Learning styles can be categorized into 7 main categories. They are visual, auditory, verbal, logical, physical, social and solitary. In this section, we will go through them one by one. Let us begin by understanding visual learning. Visual learners tend to be good at absorbing information through what they see. Being a visual learner, an individual would be thinking in pictures rather than in words. They learn best by utilizing graphs, tables, charts, maps, colors, and diagrams. These learners tend to make lists to recall information. One major benefit of being a visual learner is that you are able to see the bigger picture. You tend to grasp the underlying meaning behind body language and facial expressions. You are usually good at using your intuition to solve problems. You can easily identify patterns in what you see, although you may sometimes miss out on the details. You tend to have a vivid imagination, and this can sometimes lead to daydreaming or mental wandering. You may need to see a person's body language and facial expression to fully understand what they are trying to say.
Professor, at this point, a lot of us might think of ourselves as visual learners. Now that we have a fair idea of what our learning style may be, what is it that we can do to improve the same?
For a visual spatial learner, creativity is key. Instead of taking down notes in a traditional manner, they could represent their learning in visual and creative ways. Using a personal whiteboard and dry erase markers with plenty of colors might be useful. Incorporating lots of concept maps, be it for studies or for an action plan, may also be helpful. Drawing the main idea and then drilling it down into various categories and subcategories is another alternative. Journaling and organizing your notes like an outline is yet another idea for visual learners. Simple indentations and bullets can also help them spot how larger concepts are related to specific ones. Coming to auditory learning, a person following this method would learn best by listening. If you are an auditory learner, then music, video clips, and conversations are your ideal way of learning. You tend to do well in a traditional school-like environment, listening to lectures, and also contributing to discussions. You talk to yourself, and to others frequently. You tend to remember more names than faces. You prefer spoken directions instead of visual directions. You occasionally may have some difficulty concentrating in noisy environments. Auditory learners can learn by repeating an idea in their own words, which can greatly enhance their learning experience. Q&A sessions are a great method to keep yourself engaged, and it also helps in easily absorbing important information about specific topics. Making self-recordings is another way by which you can grasp ideas and concepts. Going through the material presented in the form of videos, podcasts, etc. instead of traditional written material is another alternative for auditory learners. Working in groups is also beneficial, as you need to listen, speak and interact to learn to the best of your capabilities. Debates and group discussions are usually a fun way to transform and elevate conversations on a specific subject. Next, we have the verbal learning style, which is also referred to as the linguistic learning style. Verbal learners absorb information best through language.
Professor, verbal and auditory learning styles sound the same to me. How exactly are they different from each other?
Yes, you may think that they are the same, but it is important to note that even though they may have certain similarities, they are two entirely different learning styles. While verbal learners learn best through the words they read, speak and hear, auditory learners stick to just hearing in general. As a verbal learner, you tend to be fascinated with words, enjoy learning new words, and usually possess a rich vocabulary. You are likely to be interested in learning new languages, asking frequent questions, and having excellent verbal expressions. At times, you may find it difficult to visualize information. However, you still enjoy reading, whether it is to yourself or to others. You enjoy talking about things you read, and also easily remember quotes, puns and rhymes. Visual learners can approach learning by reading notes, books and reports out loud. You can also try changing your voice, speaking out as characters and adjusting your pitch every now and then. Establishing a rhythm while reading or speaking out loud helps you increase memorization capabilities. You can also use mnemonics to organize information. While going through concepts that are more logical than linguistic, such as a math concept, you can try building a story around it to understand it better. Next, we have kinesthetic learners. These learners are very hands-on. They learn best by touching, moving, and physical doing. Kinesthetic tactile learners would want to draw, build, or put something together by trial and error. Due to this, kinesthetic tactile learners may get fidgety in the typical traditional classroom setting and may have difficulty staying attentive. As a kinesthetic learner, you are highly coordinated, and are often blessed with strong motor skills.
This sounds quite intriguing. Almost as if they would mostly be some sort of athletes.
You are right. These learners tend to be actively interested in sports.
Does being an athlete make learning more difficult for kinesthetic learners because they usually spend a lot of their time practicing and training? How do you suggest that they improve their learning?
This is a tricky question, since I am not the best person to tell people on how to divide their time between studying and training. But they could consider using flashcards. Writing down information and flipping the card back and forth engages the brain physically while studying. Kinesthetic tactile learners are good at multitasking. Incorporating physical objects such as coins, pens etc. can prove useful when working on more logical or strategic tasks. When visualizing a process or preparing for a speech, they can try rehearsing it, to spot potential areas for improvement. Next, we have logical learners who succeed by using order, steps, and logic. These learners can make connections and recognize patterns with ease, and tend to work well with numbers. They often have a very systematic approach to learning, and are great at staying organized. As a logical learner, you like maintaining detailed planners and organizers. You enjoy playing strategy-based games and are highly investigative and curious. You are highly goal-oriented. You seek out rules and procedures. When it comes to learning, you learn best using visual materials, laptops, and hands-on projects. Maintaining a concise, structured journal with sequential organization also tends to be extremely useful. You can use graphs and charts for this as well. This can be helpful in absorbing and understanding the information. Think of learning as problem solving and solution finding. If you are stuck, try asking questions and then look for answers in the evidence. If you have trouble writing, work on the outline first. Create a structure and then try taking on each section step by step. Moving on to solitary learners. These learners prefer learning on their own. These types of learners are self-motivated, enjoy working independently, and learn best while working alone. Solitary learners love to spend a lot of time in self-reflection, and enjoy working on themselves, so they have a strong sense of self. These individuals usually have excellent self-management skills and also prefer a quiet environment, both in their personal and academic lives. Solitary learners extensively journal whatever they are learning, and like to set goals. At times, they may struggle at opening up to others. Being a solitary learner, one can approach learning by using lists and checking items as they complete them. This would give individuals a sense of achievement. Having a quiet, dedicated place where learners can go when they wish to work, learn, or think about something is a method often used by solitary learners. This could be a study room or a library. It is observed that solitary learners are better at learning things if they can link it to their experiences. So, solitary learners should try and connect with it through their experiences as much as possible. Writing down plans, making schedules, among other things will help you stay focused on your goals. Finally, we have social learners, who learn best through communicating with others, whether it is verbal or non-verbal. Social learners enjoy being around people, working in groups, teams, and they tend to thrive through social interactions. Social learners love sharing their knowledge with others, but also love listening to their peers and do well with study groups or any sort of collaborative activities. Social learners are vocal and are not afraid to ask questions. They are good at understanding others, interpreting tones, gestures, and faces, and tend to be natural leaders. Social learners can approach learning by joining online or in-person communities in fields they are interested in. Several communities like Discord, and other social media groups etc. are dedicated to certain domains, which can be useful for discussing and interacting with people in other fields.
Professor, if I may intervene? I believe each individual is different. All of us are unique. So do all of us have a unique learning style, or do some people also have a combination of learning styles?
Of course, what you are saying is correct. One person need not have just one learning style, and may, in fact, have a combination of learning styles. There are several examples for this. Some may learn best while walking around and moving their arms, while speaking aloud to themselves. This is a combination of both auditory and kinesthetic learning styles. Similarly, some people tend to learn best through charts, mind maps, and diagrams, linking each concept to keywords. This form of learning is a mix of visual and linguistic learners. There are several other examples. A small activity that our listeners can partake in is to try and identify their respective learning styles, based on all that we have learned so far.
With this, we come to the end of this section. In this section, we familiarized ourselves with the 7 different types of learning styles. First of all, we learned about the visual learning style, where learners learn better through pictures instead of words. Secondly, we discussed about auditory learners, who learn best by listening and tend to do well in traditional school-like environments. They are different from verbal learners, since verbal learners learn best through reading. Next, we saw kinesthetic learners who learn best by physically doing things. After kinesthetic learners, we got to know about logical learners who make connections and recognize patterns with the help of order and logic. Lastly, we had solitary learners and social learners. Solitary learners are self-motivated and independent, while social learners learn best by communicating with others.
Hello. It's time to test your knowledge. For this section, we have the following questions.